Welcome, everyone, Rare Candy members, far and wide, new and old. We're here today, having a podcast, as we do. It's Round Table, once again, the Rare Table. Episode 4 with Stieven and Stieven.
You decide who and which Stieven you call Stieven, you know?
Yeah, I'll call Stieven Stieven, and I'll call Stieven Bad Stieven. We'll do that.
That was so clear. I'm so happy we cleared that one up.
Yeah. So, Bad Stieven, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What is your thing? You're from Rare Candy?
What are you doing here?
So I am Bad Steve. Okay, I got it. Hi, yeah, I'm apparently Bad Stieven. Stieven, I'm actually the growth marketing manager for Rare Candy at this point in time. Started out just kind of running social media and doing some community management stuff here and there, but after some changes in organization, I decided was going to put my foot forward and say, you know what, I want to help grow this business in more impactful ways than one. So I started learning, teaching myself, and figuring out how to do other marketing avenues. So now I just I make emails. I deal with influencers and creators. I do partnerships with grading companies and things like that for promotional material. Literally anything that goes out in public facing format, I have a hand in.
Yeah, this guy did it.
It's fun though. It's a fun time. Like nothing else. It's fun.
And what about yourself personally, on a personal note, instead of just Rare Candy focused? Like, who are you? Who's Bad Stieven, and how did he become bad?
So this is where it gets really interesting. I'm what I consider a jack of all trades, master of none. I have an amateur MMA fight under my belt. I lost. I used to run a small beard oil business many moons ago. But before that, like in actual terms of work, I kind of actually stumbled in on this because I started out doing content creation. I was streaming on Twitch a lot, and all of my content was more community-centric, was chatting with people, interacting with people. And ultimately, I ended up kind of getting a nudge from a friend that said, like, hey, why don't you maybe look at doing this as like a career? And I was like, what, streaming? I was like, nah. And he goes, no, community management. Mm-hmm. Didn't know that was a thing. So we had a little bit of a conversation about that. And at the time I was building airplanes for a living and doing the Twitch streaming thing on the side. And everything kind of lined up weirdly where the pandemic kind of hit and my entire aircraft manufacturing facility shut down. And there was no work because I actually grew up in a town of about 18,000 people, which is not a lot. So there was no work. There was no work during the pandemic there. And so I decided I was going to double down on content creation, kind of like build my portfolio there, and started doing actually volunteer community management work for a nonprofit that was focused around mental health called Anime for Humanity. Shout out to Ben and Arimi. They're awesome. And then right about the tail end, when things were kind of like people were going back to work and all of this, I took a shot in the dark at a place called Loot Crate and decided to throw my my name in that hat. They picked me up. Spent about a year in that little sphere, just kind of honing the craft of community management, social media, and everything, and then moved on to bigger and better things here at Rare Candy. It's been a weird journey.
Hey, but it's a good journey.
Who remembers Loot Crate, dude? Does that still exist?
I don't think it does.
Really?
Yeah, I think it technically does, but not as it was. Like, it all exists within the sphere of a collectibles company called NECA now. It used to be its own separate company, but then it got acquired, and they kind of ran it into the ground. Not to disparage a former employer, but it was not very well maintained. So it kind of just.
I remember getting some Loot Crates a few years ago. I got like 3 of them because it was like some deal, and they had some X-Files stuff. And I'm big into the X-Files, so I was like, "Oh, let's do it."
Okay, so X-Files podcast win because I'm a massive X-Files fan.
Oh boy.
Okay.
I can navigate this stuff, like ask you guys questions because I don't know anything about X-Files.
Okay.
Or
I'll calm down. I'll simmer down here. I'm gonna go grab my autographed X-Files magazine.
And did you have a connection to TCGs, or was it actually just the fact that you were doing community management stuff that got you into Rare Candy, or
Yeah, so it was mostly like I was in the collectibles space more than anything. I didn't really have too much of a connection to TCGs as a whole. Obviously grew up a Pokemon fan, but um, not I wasn't like too in depth into the space. But it was one of those things like, it's something I'm a fan of, and whenever I become a
Yeah.
fan of something, if I need to, I can dive head first and learn everything I need to learn about it. And that's why like now all of a sudden you'll see me like posting videos that are about the super niche history of these different cards that we've had throughout different auctions and things like that, because I started basically learning all of this stuff as a means to obviously do my job well, but then I started finding it more interesting and interesting as I kept diving, and I was like, okay, now I'm just doing this because it's fun. It just so
Yeah.
happens
Yeah.
to also be my job. But yeah, TCGs I've always kind of had a like a not like a love for them, but I've always been interested in them, and I'll die on the hill that what kind of kept me around was the artwork in Magic the Gathering. Never really was like a player of the game, but I will die on the hill that it has the best artwork of any card game out there. Hot take, but
That's a hot take. I actually really
For
like
sure.
Magic's artwork too, though. I've opened up like a booster box and a few packs, and it was like, oh, I don't know what this card does, but it looks great. Oh, this is awesome. I love it. Set it aside, you know?
right.
But now, let's dive into your actual job at Rare Candy. So you've already briefly went over your current like tasks at Rare Candy. When did you start working at Rare Candy? For
So,
everybody who
so
doesn't know you.
I actually literally just crossed my year mark about 3 weeks ago. So yeah, April 10th of last year was my start date. And yeah, as I mentioned previously, it was almost strictly in a social media and community management capacity. But yeah, full year, which is crazy to think about. Like it just kind of flew by. It
Yeah.
Yeah.
After a certain point, it's just like the time vanished. And I actually got on my like my payroll app one day just to kind of see like what time my check was supposed to land. And next thing it was like, oh yeah, today's your work anniversary. And I did the GIF. The guy just.
We're all about those gifts.
Oh yeah.
This is Steven's thing.
Yeah,
He
I
sends
have too many
all-
teeth for the GIF he likes, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
So you started as a community manager, and when did you switch over to like your expanded job, let's say?
Yeah, so that happened around October-ish of last year, kind of coming into the holiday season, which kind of made it a little scarier, like because
Yeah.
taking on bigger marketing roles heading into the holiday
Yeah.
season, it's like that's a lot of pressure. But yeah, we kind of just navigated the departure of the previous head of marketing, and I kind of already knew at least a little bit about how we did everything. So I was like, okay, well, I will figure out how to do everything that I can and just keep on trucking. And then we actually had a really good kind of end of the year, from October through December. It was a really strong year in terms of, or end of the year in terms of performance. That was really kind of encouraging to keep me on this path instead of kind of taking a step back and saying, maybe I'm not up to it. It was more like, okay, yeah, no, this is where I belong. This is what I need to be doing.
Did you enjoy
Yeah,
doing that more too?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So I have like a really strong interest in things like psychology, and when you kind of look at marketing from a deeper perspective, it in essence is like it's a psychological thing. It's like,
Yeah.
Rare Candy offers things like booster boxes and ETBs and different TCGs that you can get just about anywhere. It's like, so I have to figure out how to put it out in front of people in a way that makes them want to get it from us as opposed to anybody else. And so it's a really interesting kind of like studying how, what makes people really want to be a part of something aside from just like, oh yeah, you can come buy it from us, but you could buy it from anywhere.
Yeah.
So like, why do you want to buy it from us? And then it's like you can use that and figure that out to kind of double down on it and stuff like that. So it's really interesting to learn kind of how people think in terms of deciding where they're going to get the things that they want to get anyways.
Yeah, and you have to make people like catch their eye. Like, I don't know about you. Did you know Rare Candy beforehand? But if you didn't, like, what caught your eye, right? You have to be like, oh, I see this ad here. Who's Rare Candy? What are they doing? And oh, okay, cool. They sell Pokemon cards. I love Pokemon.
That is
So,
almost exactly how I started here. I was on LinkedIn looking at community management, social media management jobs, and I saw Rare Candy. I was like, that sounds like a Pokemon thing. And so I opened up the job
mhm.
description, and it had the LinkedIn Easy Apply button. So I was like, why not?
Yeah. So that's what you have to do. You got to market it to people just like that, except for not with, LinkedIn. You got to do with everything else. Rare
Right.
candy, Pokemon.
Yeah, and what's really kind of been an interesting thing that I've learned in my time doing all of the marketing initiatives here is how self-aware of a consumer I've become. So like
Hmm.
I will see an email that'll pop up for a different company, and I'll click it, and then when it opens I stop immediately. I'm like, okay, what made me open this? Because I don't typically open emails. So it's like, all right,
Hmm.
what caught my eye about this? Like, what made me catch get my attention here and actually like pay attention to what's going on? And so it's like, now that I'm kind of more self-aware about that, I'm able to take that and kind of maneuver it into marketing strategies for us.
Hmm. For sure.
Hold on. You never open your emails?
Not like marketing emails. Like if I have an email from somebody I know, yeah, I'll open it. But like if I get like a, for instance, Huckberry, which is like a kind of like an outdoor clothing brand,
Hmm.
90% of the time I don't open those emails, but then every now and
Yeah.
then like a subject will hit, and it'll catch my eye, like, huh? And I'll open it, and I'll be like, okay, what about that made me open it when I don't normally? So that way I can kind of use that as a strength.
For sure.
Yeah, I hate
And
emails.
then you're implementing that into your own job.
Yes, I take that. I think that's where sometimes you get people who have been in marketing, went to school for marketing, because that's another thing. I didn't graduate college. I kind of just like am figuring this all out as I
Yeah.
go. And I
Hmm.
think sometimes that's where in-person experience on things like this versus, like in classroom education can kind of benefit you, because it's like you understand, okay, I didn't have somebody tell me all of the ins and outs of how this stuff works, so I'm paying attention to how it works on me. And I'm your average
Yeah.
everyday consumer with spending problems. So maybe if I'm the one opening the emails, then that's something I should look at, right?
Hmm. Fire emojis, they get Steven's attention right away, right?
Oh yeah, the sideways looking eyeball emoji gets me every time. It's like
Yeah.
oh wait, this emoji is looking at something. I need to be looking at it.
Good deal. What?
I'm a simple man. I see fire emoji, I open the email.
Simplest strategy right there.
Okay, take notes, guys. Take notes.
Yeah, I'm
So,
giving this
so
information
when
away for free. Okay, I'm
yeah,
This is an educational
thanks, dude.
session for a
Thanks.
podcast.
So when you did increase or take on new tasks, how different was that from like just managing community? Because you were kind of doing like community management. You were trying to still do that perhaps as well at the same time of taking on new tasks. So how did that go? Like you obviously mentioned that you took on the job really well and you had a strong end of the year, but how did that actually feel for you? Like did it overwhelm you perhaps, or did you have too many tasks, or were you just fine with it? Were you just rolling with it?
Yeah, I will be 100% transparent. The prioritization of things, and like what they like to call in corporate speak sequencing of like different tasks and stuff like that, it becomes overwhelming. It really does. Like whenever
Mhm.
as anybody knows, Rare Candy's kind of a startup, right? And so like we have a small team here. It's a pretty small team, and so like having that many tasks and that many, with only so many hours in the day, and having, obviously like a family and hobbies outside of work too, it it gets a little overwhelming. And there wasn't like a super smooth transition to me taking on a lot of these responsibilities. It kind of came out of nowhere. We had 2 weeks for me to try to learn everything I could, and it kind of became a game of like catch up, like consistent catch up for me in terms of like the marketing tasks. Recently there have been some new not policies, not policies, procedures. That's the word. Some new
Mhm.
procedures in place that are helping me actually like get ahead of these things. And so, because what in the end I do not want, community management to be kind of like a secondary thing that is like, oh, if I have time, like, because that's honestly the most important part of any business, especially any growing business, is to be community centric, is to have like the people who want to be a part of it, those are the ones you want to celebrate and be in there with, hanging out with, and being a part of the community with them. It's like you can't just like create the community and then let it be to its own devices. Like you have to be a part of it. And with all the new responsibilities and things that come along, and not really having somebody come in and replace like my level of stuff that was happening on the back end or on the other side of things, like the not marketing side, it became pretty difficult. But I do feel like in terms of community management, it is a strong point of mine. So now that we have these new procedures in place that are going to help me get ahead, I'm going to be able to like start focusing on the community aspect of it a lot more. And that's something that like truly, truly excites me. It was something that I noticed today. It was like, I'm caught up. I can actually like go hang out in the Discord and chat, like, and so I was like taking pictures of some of the stuff at the office and kind of giving some sneak peeks in the Discord and stuff like that. Like, we technically revealed the Illustrator card that's going to be in May's auction, technically revealed it during the April premiere auction, Leonhardt, when he was hosting it. We come up with the idea to have him kind of tease it and show it off there. But, outside of the premiere auction, nobody still really knew that it was coming. So I was like, you know what? Discord's getting first dibs on this. Like, I already have the video recorded and all this, but I was like, before I post it on socials, we're sharing it in the Discord. And that's something that I'm going to be able to like do more now, because in like, again, because of the procedures. And that's something that just really excites me, is to be able to kind of be in the fun aspect of it again, not just the kind of behind the scenes nonsense that is the boring stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, you always want to be at a point where you're not chasing it, and you can never be too much in front of your tasks. You can always be in front of your tasks. Like chasing something is always going to lead to like mistakes, chaos, stress. So being in front of your task is always going to be a good thing. Yeah, for sure. That's the sweet spot.
Yeah, that's where we're like on the cusp of finishing, like heading now. It was a little bit crazy again coming out of premiere or into and out of premiere auction time for the month. But we're in a whole new month. We got a whole new cycle with these procedures already in place, and people understanding what the what the expectations are. So that's going to be something that again, now we're ahead of the game, and it's a lot easier to kind of like look at accountability and stuff on if things do start to fall behind, because it's it was kind of like everybody was scrambling last minute a lot for a while. And, and we were, everything was still working and great and everything from like a forward facing perspective. But on the back end, it's important for us to be able to get ahead of these things so we can more effectively manage our time for other things as well.
Yeah. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but that sounds like that might be the biggest challenge that you had to face when you started, right? We want to know what were your challenges, but like, if you got a lot of chaos, you don't have the procedures in place, stuff like that, that might be your biggest challenge. What are the other challenges you faced though when you started?
Learning. There was a lot of stuff that I kind of like knew, but then there was also a lot of stuff that I didn't know anything about, but was kind of necessary. Some things like, for instance, Google Merchant Center. You can upload all of your inventory to where it's on the, you go to Google Shopping and it appears there. That was something we weren't even doing before I took over this spot. Like it was something that, prior to me taking over, it wasn't even a thing. And so when I took over, I was like, okay, well, this isn't a thing. It should be a thing. How do I make it a thing? And so like, actually like dedicating time to learning how to do these other things was kind of challenging. I put in a lot of extra hours at the onset of taking on these new responsibilities. Oh, pardon me. To make sure that I was able to, kind of be putting my best foot forward on, not having to rely on others to make sure this stuff was done properly. So there was just a lot of YouTube videos and Google teaching me how to do the stuff I didn't know how to do yet.
Hey, those are great resources, honestly. Like you can learn so much just from that.
Yeah, I learned how to change a serpentine belt on a 09 Dodge Caliber because of YouTube. Okay.
You can find a tutorial on pretty much anything nowadays.
100%.
Thank God. Yeah, that's the modern day, dude. Like just YouTube, just Google a tutorial.
Yeah, it's like you're sitting there under the car, like with the wrench in your hand, tap and play, like.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then pause it, get that done, be like, all right, moving on to the next part. And then something falls and hits you in the face. You're like,
I mean, it's kind of an amazing thing at the same time. Like we laugh about it, but it's so useful. Like if you don't know anything like about a certain thing that you're trying to do, like having a visual example is so crucial, dude.
Oh,
Like
100%.
sometimes I'm actually looking at a tutorial and I'm like, oh my god, if this wasn't a thing, I would never be able to do this.
Yeah.
Not even close.
Yeah, I'm a very very visual learner. And that's
Yeah.
actually like kind of to relating to, the job is part of the processes that are being put in place is like I have an actual like physical calendar in front of me now for all of my marketing tasks where it's like it pops up, it color codes based on like what the task is, whether it's email or social media or whatever and all this. So it's like
Mhm.
I can look at it and it's all laid out on like what I need to do when. And used to it was like all in a list. And a list can kind of be a little like
It's
yeah.
daunting.
Yeah, and so like having it like just being able to visibly see a calendar of like, oh, I know how long this is going to take me to do,
Mhm.
so I need to know how long, or I now know rather how long ahead of it I need to start it to make sure it's done on time, and it's so helpful.
Yeah.
So, moving on to one of perhaps your biggest tasks within your job is the social medias. And what platforms is Rare Candy actually on? Like for anybody who's perhaps listening to this in the Discord and isn't following any socials or is watching this clip perhaps on YouTube, where can we find Rare Candy? What socials?
So Rare Candy does have a TikTok, an Instagram, I'm not calling it X, a Twitter, a Facebook, and we do of course that. I mean, if you're watching this on YouTube, believe it or not, have a YouTube. Um, but those are the primary ones. Then obviously, if you're watching us on YouTube, we have a Discord that you should go join. That will be linked in the chat
Yeah,
below.
buddy.
Hmm.
You can
For
join these
sure.
things live. But yeah, it's so yeah, we have the TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and the YouTube channel right now. And luckily, a lot of that's kind of cross like so a lot of the content can be like cross platform shared, so it's not like
Hmm.
individual content for everything. um there are things you have to do for certain platforms differently, like just getting on Twitter and putting out a poll. Like the other day we put out, what's your first, what got you into Pokemon? Was it the TCG video games or the anime or other? And it got a lot of votes, people were interactive. And then like on Instagram, of course, you do like stories, right? Like you just put like
Hmm.
individual pictures you could slide through, click links on and stuff. So it's like there's a little bit of difference between the two, but like the luckily overarching theme is kind of cross functionality is plausible. And we technically have a Twitch channel, we just haven't started using it yet.
Don't worry, I'm following it already.
Yeah, the reason we have a Twitch channel, this is something I'm actually really excited to share in case anybody missed out on it, was Rare Candy did sponsor a massive streamathon that was raising money for St. Jude, hosted by, primarily put on by a streamer named Sailboat. But his team put together this like massive, it was like a 10-day long streamathon where they just raided into each other after each stream, and they ended up raising, it was like 70 something thousand dollars for St. Jude. And Rare Candy,
Right.
we were proud to, that they came to us and we were able to contribute. We gave them like some modern inventory to like do giveaways with, and then some vintage, like I think we gave them like a couple of base set 2 booster packs to give away once they hit certain milestones and such. And so it was really exciting to be a part of. So I made sure we had a Twitch account so I could spend work hours going in and hanging out on Twitch.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And what's the plan with that Twitch, for example? Are you planning on like streaming auctions to multiple platforms, perhaps? Because at the moment it's just being streamed in the app, in the Rare Candy app, or is that not something that the Twitch will be used for?
It could be, it could be something that we look at like co-streaming in the future. But with the way our current platform is laid out, it's kind of hard to multi-stream. It is possible, but I think our current software does only support 2 platforms at the moment. And with our app platform and the website in general being vertical, it kind of looks odd on the horizontal platforms. So it's going to be one of those where we're going to look at ways to basically run 2 separate streaming softwares. That way we could run one
Hmm.
horizontal and one vertical. But that is a little bit further down the line. We have some other things we have
Yeah.
to take care of, like logistically speaking, before we can implement something like that. But I would like to. I think the more eyes, the better, honestly, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So, how important is social media to a company nowadays?
Social media is and this is my personal opinion, the second most effective marketing platform / strategy of any available out there, only behind legitimately just word of mouth. Word of mouth. I'm kind of old fashioned. Grew up in like rural Oklahoma, so that's like how we found out about a lot of stuff was word of mouth. But say you go and buy something from somebody and you have a really positive experience, and then you go share that with people who actually trust you, like friends or just like people who follow you on socials that obviously follow you for one reason or another. The likelihood that you're going to check them out is higher because somebody that you actually know to some degree had a positive experience. So word of mouth definitely is number one, but social media is a strong number two. But I also, and this is where I'm going to kind of have a little bit of a hot take, I feel like a lot of companies use social media incorrectly. A lot of them will use it strictly as a sales tactic where they'll just, like our goal is to try to like sprinkle, like, hey, these are some of the things we offer, some of the things we have available to purchase. But ultimately it's like, hey, how do we make engaging and informational content around stuff? And so that's where you're seeing like these videos come in where it's like, you may not find out that it's even in an auction until after, at the end of the video or something along those lines. That way we can actually put the content out there that shows, one, we know what we're talking about. Two, we love this fandom just as much as anybody, because we do have some people who are very passionate about the TCG space in general. And then of course, again, being personable, like adding a face to a brand is important, like even if it's this stupid, ugly face. It's being able to like add like a little bit of personality to it. That way, when we go to like conventions, people will be like, "Oh, it's Rare Candy." Like, "Oh, I know, I've seen you from Rare Candy," and things like that. Like, there's a recognizable aspect to it, not just a logo. So it's again incredibly important and second only to word of mouth. Now, a lot of people would argue email is definitely up there because email is across literally all industries the number one revenue driver amongst existing customers because it's not algorithm driven. It's just either check the emails or you don't. Most of the time I don't. But yeah, that's but again, I guess it kind of depends on how you look at it, but in terms of like actual impact on the business, I would say social media is definitely very close to number one, but right there at number two.
Yeah, like we were talking about, you have a personality behind it because, on Twitter, I'll see like, ad for this company, and it's just like block, right? And they're just like showing the product, or whatever. But if you're like talking, you're engaging, you're like, oh yeah, you did the poll, right? How'd you get started in this? How do you? Then it's more of like a entertaining, and it's not just a like, oh, you just want me to buy stuff. Like sometimes it's just not even about buying stuff, right? It's just like, how can we get you more involved with the community?
Yeah,
And
even if it's
that's
just
nice.
even if it's just calling me by a different name and me sharing staring gifs back at you, right, Steven?
I get to see you guys.
I have no idea what he's talking about.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
It's actually crazy that we've gotten to a point where social media is the primary marketing strategy of like 99% of the companies nowadays.
Yeah, it's not on cable anymore, right? You're not
Incredible.
booting up your TV and watching it and saying, "Oh, there's Rare Candy on the TV."
Yeah.
And I don't know about you guys, but I pay extra to not watch ads. Like on streaming services, I will pay the extra $3 a month to not watch ads ever. Like I hate watching. I don't like ads. Like I'll buy something from a company that catches my attention for one reason or another, but ads are the fastest way for me not to. It's so weird how that's becoming like counterintuitive, right? It's like paid ads are supposed to be the way to get your brand in front of people but people themselves have developed this like desire for more organic communication and stuff like that. Like, I mean, I always default back to this one. Like, look at Wendy's on Twitter. Wendy's on Twitter is so funny. Like they make all these hot takes. They talk trash about other fast food companies as if like it's actually like a single person and not this huge corporation. And when you think about like, especially here, here in America, you ask people, you think companies on social media, what's the first one that comes to mind? And you will get a large amount of them to say Wendy's because it comes back to that like that fun, engaging communication, goofiness. Now, obviously, you got to kind of toe a line in the sand depending on your brand voice, which is like a whole other thing about marketing. So it's like,
Yeah.
I've been told I could start having hot takes on socials, but I'm like, where do I draw the line on hot takes? Before I get us in
Yeah.
trouble for something. So I still kind of reel back the hot takes, but they're gonna start coming. Get ready.
Yeah, we're waiting. Steven's ready there.
We're ready.
He's
We're
got
ready.
his gifs right there, gifs right there. Whatever you call them.
We're ready.
They're ready.
Yep, we're about to start having them, man.
The problem for me personally with ads is like you're getting forced something to see something or to engage with something that you are not asking for most of the times, and something that you sign up for is something that you actually want to get like advertised to you. So that's basically what a lot of people think about ads. Like you don't want to get forced an ad that you 99% of the time don't want to see or don't want to engage with, because for some reason it gets suggested to you because it aligns with something of your interest or something you might have checked out in the past. But then they force you a ton of these ads that you don't want to see.
Yeah, or
So-
you set it too close to an Alexa, and now all of a sudden it's all in your face.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's
Exactly.
actually, if you actually look, Rare Candy doesn't, like, we don't do paid ads. Like we don't do them. We've shifted like a lot of our shop strategy. We've actually shifted to using SEO, which is search engine optimization. Like basically, like how do we make our listings more effective to appear higher up on things like Google, Bing, Yahoo, etc.
Yep.
And it's been pretty fruitful endeavor in that regard, because we were actually looking recently at some of the like the referrals, like where traffic was coming into the website, and organic Google searches has become the number one driver of traffic to the Rare Candy website. And when you have like good SEO like that, you can focus on having your content actually being funny, engaging, still showing off cool stuff like these really expensive cards that we do have, because I mean obviously we're going to make content around that, but we're going to do it in a way that's like it is available, but here's why it's cool. Here's like some information about it. Here's some cool stuff about it. Here's a video about it. Then at the end, it's like, oh yeah, by the way, if you want, it's available, that kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. Because like the educational thing, I think there's a lot just with Pokemon, just getting the information, getting the education. There's just a lot of people interested in that, right? So, hey, I'm not going to spend $1 million on a card. Hey, I'm not going to spend $10,000 on a card. Even that, you might not even spend $500 on a card, but you might want to look at a card and be like, that's a really cool card. Where did that come from? Oh, it was this year, is this, that type of thing. And you're just in general like, oh, I'm glad I got to see that video. I'm glad I got to see that short clip. And now you remember in the future, like, oh, where did I see that? Oh, it was Rare Candy. That's where that was.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's, and again, once you create content like that people actually like, and it kind of brings them in to want to watch it, future content will more organically cross their timeline, because what you were making was something they were clearly interested in, because they watched 85, 95, 100% of the video, sometimes even more if you make like a short video and it crosses over, starts over again, or that's why actually we haven't done it in a while, but occasionally we'll do these things where the video has a perfect loop back, where it's like the end of the video feeds back into the beginning, so people will be like, oh wait, I'm watching the video again, don't even realize it because it loops back so perfectly. And that's actually like a strategy to get people to watch the video just a little bit longer to help drive it in the algorithm, kind of thing. But yeah, it's the perfect example of how it's become almost antithetical to pay advertising to get to people, because people don't want to be, especially on social media. Like, I don't know, tell me one time you've ever been like, you know what, I'm gonna go get on Twitter and see what I can buy today.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's the same with Instagram, TikTok, all of it. Like TikTok Shop has become so prominent nowadays. Like they'll push shop in your face all the time, and it's causing their the user base to go down, because people are tired of, I mean, I stopped using it because I was tired of just I could only see so many people trying to sell me Hogwarts floating candles before I'm like, I'm done. I don't want the Hogwarts.
Get this out of here.
candles.
I know what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Give me my memes.
Once you get to that point of like knowing it, you're like, I don't want to see this anymore.
Yeah.
Especially even if you like it, you're like, I am so sick of seeing that. I mean, sometimes it'll get you and it'll be like, every so often you're reminded of it. Oh, okay, maybe I should buy that. Okay, maybe I should buy it. But if it's like boom, 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 you're like, get out, block, I'm done.
Yeah, that's actually one of the reasons. We've had a recent content shift. Like we're always, as a newer company, we're always still trying to experiment with new content ideas. If for those that follow us on Instagram have probably noticed, used to every time we had a drop, we would post we would post a drop graphic of like, oh, this is available now for this price, because you want people to know that it's there. But then it was like, man, you look at your engagement numbers, you're like, people aren't being on social media to be sold something. So it's like, okay, yeah, cool, we have this one thing for a pretty solid price, but it's still just like kind of a salesy graphic. People aren't going to like that. And so we kind of shifted more to, even if we are doing something salesy, organic photography of it, like even if it's something simple as holding up, 4 Team Rocket packs with each individual art in front of the Rare Candy LED and snapping a photo of it. It's like, first off, here's this picture of this thing that reminds you of your childhood, but it's an organic photo. It's like an actual picture of these things. So people stop for a little bit longer to look at them. And if you talk a little bit about what it is before you say also, these are available on the Rare Candy shop, then they stay on the post a little longer. They relive that nostalgia. And then, at that point, they're actually more likely to want to pick it up if it's within their budget than if it was just like oh, hey, we have these, buy them, And that's why we kind of had that content shift, and it's actually shown in our our engagement, our impressions, everything. Our follower count started growing again, and because it just made sense. Again, I don't get on social media to be sold something, but I will follow brands I like.
So this is actually flowing into our next question, which is actually what the strategy would be to grow your brand on social media, because we're talking a lot about like being familiar or having like a sort of friendship or like connection with buyers or customers or followers, whatever you want to call it. And that actually, like for me as a customer or as a follower of a brand, if I can engage with it, it feels a lot more familiar to me. It just gives you off a different vibe than just a brand trying to sell you something, because they're not engaging with you necessarily to sell something, but they're just engaging for like fun or just to be part of the community, to have you be part of the community, which is a very different feeling for me as a customer or as a follower or whatever, than if you're just saying like, here's 14 rocket packs, like the example that you're talking about.
Right. Yeah.
So what's the actual strategy?
Honestly, like the one thing that I think gets slept on more than anything, because like, like posting like, hey, we have this stuff. Like you always have like an engaging question at the end to get people to comment, right? Like, so the question at the end of the Team Rocket one, for example, since we already have prefaced it with that, is which pack art was your favorite? And people start commenting their favorite pack art. But here's where some companies stop, and here's where I do my best to not stop. So a lot of companies will do that engagement farming and then just not pay attention to the comment section. Me, I like to go into that comment section and basically have a micro conversation with everybody that left a comment. Whether it's like, oh, my favorite pack art was the one that had Gyarados on it. I like to go in and ask the question like, oh, is it because Gyarados is one of your favorite Pokemon? Like, what is it about it? Like because in the end, and this is something that helps me because I do actually have a genuine interest in people and listening to their stories and everything. But having that genuine interest allows you to continue those conversations because people want to feel heard. They want to feel heard. They want to feel included. And so I love talking with people. Like that's why I reached out after Far was on the podcast. I was like, when's my turn? When do I get to do this? Because I like it gave me like a work reason to be able to come in and actually chat with you guys, and be able to talk about stuff that interests me, but obviously it interests you. Otherwise, you wouldn't have brought me on. And that's where I feel like a lot of companies kind of struggle, is because it's all about measuring all these kind of corporate acronyms, KPIs and OKRs and all that. I still don't know what half those words or half those things mean. All I know is engagement is important. Is the most important metric. Some people would say it's impressions. How many people did you get in front of? Mine is how many people interacted with you, and why did they? Like how is that interaction going? Sentiment is also incredibly important. Like how do people feel about the brand itself? And if people feel like, oh, I like the brand because, again, they'll ask these questions, I'll go in and comment on them, and then, a lot of people will know it's me because, I'm doing the videos and stuff too, but they're like, oh, and Stieven comes in and actually talks to me, about this stuff. So they have a genuine interest in the community's thoughts and feelings about this space. And it's because I do. Like, I love hearing this stuff because I like to be listened and listened to and heard, and I like when people show interest in what I'm interested in. So, it's cool to offer that back up to other people, especially, if you like it, if you like actually talking to people.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not to toot our own horn here, but like, what companies out there doing podcasts with community members and like having fun like this? I don't know.
Shots
Yeah,
fired.
I mean, I'll be 100% honest. I don't know if I've crossed the line on transparency yet or not. I feel like I might have in some aspects, but that's one thing that I'm proud of about this company too, though, is like we're able to be transparent about stuff. Like we're able. That's something we actually kind of take pride in, is the transparency of what goes on behind the scenes. Sometimes everybody gets buried in their own work and we don't get to communicate it as effectively, because we are kind of in this like really exciting time, which I can actually kind of talk about a little bit, because we did beta test this at the last Collecticon, but we have this really cool like collector's tool thing coming to Rare Candy. Like, it's going to be incredible. I don't have an iPhone and it kind of bums me out because of it, but
Yeah, same.
it's maybe in the future, fingers crossed. I keep pushing for it, but it's this, these really cool collector tools where you can actually, there's going to be kind of like a social aspect to it, where you can get on deals, have friends, start leaderboards on your collection. Like, I don't want to divulge too much, but there's some really cool stuff coming, and that does require a lot of like the bandwidth of the team. But now that I'm getting ahead of my game, I can start talking to them and be like, hey, what do you want me to communicate with our Discord? Because Discord's going to be the first place we go with this information. Like, this is where all of our beta testers are. Like, everybody that's beta tested for this company is in this Discord, like so now it's, I get to kind of get that information and come share it. And then guess who gets to feel like the breaking news Discord server, that's what I'm really excited about, man. It's going to be so cool.
And that gets people excited too. Like, again, feeling included, so important.
Oh yeah. And that's something that, with the, talk about the challenges of me making that change over to, I wasn't even able to like fully get like entirely integrated into the flow of the Discord community before this change happened. And, I should have, and that's where I actually recognize like one of my shortcomings. I should have focused on that. I was focused a little too heavily on the social media aspect at the direction of my head of marketing at the time. But it shouldn't have been that, like it shouldn't have been just like, hey, let's get this out there. Let's talk about the sales. Here's what we're doing. Here's what we're selling. It never should have been about that. And now that's starting to show, like with my, my stepping in and going, hey, this is how we probably should be doing this. Let's start testing it, see if it works. And when it starts working, it's like, okay, proof's in the pudding. Let's start going back to, let's start getting back to the community on this. And
yeah.
And then again, that's how you get people to kind of, from a business standpoint, even like that's how you get people to buy from you anyways, is like, oh, I'm going to buy from Rare Candy because I trust them, because, I know that if I have a problem, I can go shoot Stieven a DM and he'll, he'll forward it to whoever he needs to pester them all day and be like, hey, hey. But whenever you can trust a company in that regard, that goes a long way, because you can only compete in price so much before somebody's losing out. And our goal is to be able to just drive that traffic and those sales through trust. It's like we talk about it in our own team meetings, where it's like our mission statement, and God, I hope I don't get railroaded for this one because I don't remember it word for word, but ultimately, our mission statement is to provide a trusted and transparent marketplace for TCG sellers and buyers. Like people, like that's like no surprise. There was and I will be the first to admit it, there was a massive hiccup with the Temporal Forces pre-orders. Without going into too much detail, when we nailed down the problem, figured out what happened, we owned up to it, and our leadership took it upon themselves, like to actually try to make it right in whatever way they feasibly could by like reaching out to the people that were affected by it and trying to offer up something in the promise that we won't let this happen again. And I can actually say without a shadow of a doubt that became priority number one to make sure everybody was happy by the time Twilight Masquerade comes out. And it's ready. We're ready to handle that one now. Like we're good. And that's something that we pride ourselves on, is being transparent. Like, yes, we made a mistake. We apologize. We understand you're upset. We will do our best to make sure this doesn't happen again. And that again, it became priority number one to fix that, and now we're here. And I can say that no, I'm not going to get in trouble because, that's the goal, is to be transparent about where we do make mistakes.
For sure.
That's great news. That's great news.
Oh yeah, breaking news. We're going to be ready for Twilight.
No, great news. Great news.
Well, you're talking about like interactions with the community, and one of the things you got with on the different side of things besides social media is we've got the auctions that go on, right?
Mhm.
Career auctions and stuff like that. But the nice thing about those is you get to actually like engage with the community there too, right? Because you got the whole comment section.
Yep.
And I feel like that's different from a lot of other auction houses, right? You don't really see that. I mean, I know Rare Candy's not just like an auction house, but there is that aspect to it for sure.
Yeah.
So, like, are there anything, this is a surprise question, are there any things that like you're going to introduce in the future to try to get even more engagement within that realm of auctioning?
Oh, it's not a surprise. We just talked about this no, I'm kidding. But in the other chat, I don't know if you were in there at the time. But yeah, no. So as it stands right now, as anybody who actually hangs out in the Rare Candy auction sees, that like the guaranteed one streamed every month is always our premiere auction hosted by Leonhardt. It's a great chance for Leonhardt's community and the rest of the TCG community to come in and be a part of that, while also being able to chat with him, because he's a big deal in the Pokemon TCG space. Obviously, he's one of the co-founders of the company as well, because he's passionate about this space. But yes, to answer your question, there's more. We are now looking at ways to feasibly live stream at least one more weekly auction a month. We're going to try to make them themed. Like, for instance, this Thursday, if you're watching this now, you may have missed it if you're on YouTube. Sorry. But this upcoming Thursday, we have an all 10s auction. It's like 90 something cards. All of them are either CGC or PSA 10. Like a dozen of those cards may or may not be mine. But hey, listen, I'm a consigner too, okay? But we're going to live stream it because it's all 10s. It's kind of like a special thing, right? Like, they're all 10s, even if it's like kind of a wide, crazy variety of cards. From like a half a dozen Urshifus to like Unigaba promos, felt hat, Van Gogh Pikachus, etc. All kinds of stuff, but they're all 10s. So it's like, all right, that's cool. Let's make a thing out of it. So we're going to live stream that one, and that's where I'm going to come in. I'm going to take care of all the live streaming that's not the premiere auction, because I tend to think that sometimes I have a bit of a personality to do these things and have fun. So we are going to make it a point to do that at least once a month. We're working on getting, kind of like seeing how we want to do that. We're going to start with this all 10s auction, but we may shift it even into like, oh, we have an auction of all Charizards, or all Pikachus, or all this era, maybe Articunos. Maybe Articunos, I don't know, but yeah. And then another thing that actually I was talking with the esteemed Discord admin team earlier today that I do want to start doing is any auction that we're not going to live stream on the app, we can hop in it. We can hop in one of these, or we can hop in just the chat and just kind of watch the auction go while we talk about the cards. And I can, I want to be a part of involved in the community again, and having somebody from Rare Candy in the community, maybe breaking news during these times and stuff like that, can make it a really fun time for all of us, and I don't really have much going on a Thursday night at 6, but we're also looking at potentially doing some other things at different hours of the day, Stieven, so we can have our international friends, Stieven, involved in them. We do box breaks occasionally. I would like to do more box breaks too, because those are fun, even if they're like a modern set or something like that. Like when Twilight comes out, we may do like a whole case break of Twilight just for the fun of it. And do that. I'm going to do that during normal work hours. So that'll be like at 2 in the afternoon for me.
Yeah.
So that way we make sure we kind of vary it up and people can be involved from, different time zones. And honestly, just different work schedules and stuff. But yeah, being able to do more stuff like that in the Discord is going to be fun. I'm probably going to take it upon myself to host random, probably unorganized game nights too, just because, kind of the best community I've been a part of, like it's better than the NECA community. Hey, that's gonna ruffle some feathers.
Yo, we're starting the hot takes right in Discord.
But yeah,
more shots fired.
But yeah, I feel like this comes from me being a community manager off of the tails of me being a Twitch streamer. live streaming is such a good way to interact with the community. You know, like
Mhm.
it's no secret that like Rip and Shippers on TikTok, they make a lot of money selling packs for way too much just because people want to be a part of just having that experience with
Yeah.
like-minded people or people they trust or people they look up to. And as you know, as somebody who's supposed to be a relevant figure in the rare candy community, I feel like it just makes sense for us to do more stuff like that. You know, especially
Mhm.
why introduce a chat function to our auctions if we're not at least getting in there and doing stuff like that. Like I get the the premier auction's a different story. That I mean that's it's an event. Like that is a whole event. We have to have stuff that's not just an event. Just there's got to be times where you just hang out. Things like the happy hour. I guess I got to start making
Mhm.
sure I save cards to do that again because I pulled that Iron Boulder out of the first happy hour. I've
Yeah.
anticipated it in a long time, so that's going to start being a thing again, I guess, because I need better hits, and if that's the only way I'm going to
Mhm.
get them.
Yeah, you got to come to happy hour for the fire hits. Like that's it.
Absolutely. And yeah, and that's another thing too, like talked about community management. It's also partially my responsibility. I say partially, it's a big part of my responsibility to manage the growth of the community as well as the maintenance of it. So it's like not only am I going to get back into the weeds, obviously, with you guys to work really diligently to reboost the engagement, get people more involved in stuff again, but
Mhm.
also to bring new people in. I've started including Discord related events in our emails because we have a pretty significant email list. Like we have it's like a 6-figure email list, and getting that stuff out there. Talking about happy hour.
Join us.
Yeah, get in here. Like I'll even if I don't have like a banner graphic for something like the art contest or something like that. Like if we just have something going on, I have like a Rare Candy Discord banner that I'll plug in there just to be like, hey,
Mhm.
come join us for events. We have a good time and all of that. And I'm going to start plugging that stuff into the social media posts as well. Like when we start talking about it, we start talking about like the new sets coming out. Hey, join the Rare Candy Discord. Come get in the conversation. Let's talk about this stuff. And
Mhm.
so it's very important to get back to our roots sometimes, right? And I was one of those that kind of got so caught up in learning new things and trying to have impacts in different areas of the business that I kind of forgot that in the end the most important thing is community. And that's again, we have to get back to our roots sometimes, and we're overdue for that. So that's why I'm really happy with where we're going in terms of like organizational processes, so I can be more involved in this and not be constantly thinking about, oh crap, what did I forget to do today?
For sure.
On topic of the teamed auctions, my favorite auction has to be the all legendary collection auction.
Oh,
That was probably
nuts.
before your time, but that was so good, dude.
Yeah.
So good.
I want to
Like
say that was
100
right
plus.
after I started, because didn't John
What?
host that one? I think John hosted that one, right?
I don't know. It's been a while. I
So-
think
It was like a year ago, right?
I want to say it was like literally my second or third weekly auction that I was at the company for, because I remember putting
Mhm.
all of like I remember making the graphic for it, because I don't know if you remember, we used to have kind of a templatized graphic for the weekly auctions where we would have like the letters of like what the auction was kind of in a box around it, and then like a few cards inside and stuff. And I remember making that legendary collections one because I remember seeing all those firework hollow foils, and I was like, and this is gonna be sick.
That was so good, dude.
Yeah,
Such a good auction.
That's what I want to start doing too. Is like when we get to doing those themed auctions, I want to do more stuff like that, where it's like an entire era, even if it's like not the biggest banger cards from that era, but like doing more legendary collection, or even like Skyridge or something like that. Even if it doesn't have a Charizard or something, but I also would like to include like one massive banger card that people are going to fight for. Like I think that's important as well. Because it doesn't have to be in a premiere. It's all it's all auction anyway. So it's like let's have one kind of hold down the fort for these, and just that way people are kind of interested in that, and then maybe they go in and bid on these other ones just because they're there, right? Like, and that was something I was talking actually with one of the team members earlier today. Was I feel like it's important we have these live auctions in terms of just generating unique bidders or total bid numbers, because sometimes people will just be hanging out and they'll be like, oh, this card is only at $5 right now. Oh, I'll
bid.
Yeah, I mean, and so like,
I've not fallen into that ever.
Ever, huh?
No. Well,
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, and again, that kind of goes back to like talking about that psychology though. It's like, okay, how do we make some themed auctions around certain things that like going to drive people's attention? It's like obviously Charizard's a big dog, right? Like everybody knows Charizard. Hot take, he's overrated.
Get him out of here.
Yeah,
that's not a hot take. That's just a take.
Yeah, that's just general knowledge.
Alakazam for the win.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's again, it's one of those things. Like I think there's a psychology to it though. You get people's attention, like, oh, all Charizard. So like maybe that one Charizard card I want's in there, so I'm gonna go look around for it and stuff. And if we have a wide variety of it, then cool. Like they'll probably find the one they're looking for, and that's what we want. We also, on top of community, we want to just like have the stuff that people want that maybe they can't find other places. Because it's one thing to have like Twilight Masquerade, Temporal Forces, Obsidian Flames for $89.99. It's like it's one thing to like have stuff that you can get just about anywhere, but like to have these things like a PSA 9 2017 World Championship #2 trainer card. There's only 2 of them. Where else are you going to get one kind of thing? So being able to have that stuff for people who are looking for it is important as well, because then you become like that trusted source for the harder to find stuff. Because eBay, 50-50, honestly.
The nice thing about like Rare Candy over eBay is, I mean, eBay's got their authenticity guaranteed now thing. That's pretty good. But you've always had like things that are going on auction, they've been checked beforehand. You're not like disappointed if you win it and then like, oh, it's fake. You know what I mean? Like an eBay sends it back or something like. It's like, no, they've already checked this out. It's on auction. You win it, you get it. It's real. And that's just another kind of like, that's just a nice thing about having an auction house or anything like that.
Yeah, and the cool thing about doing them live sometimes, obviously, is like, hey, I can literally physically show you what you're looking at. Like, I am going to show this to you on camera. And again, from a social media perspective too, it's like I can show it to you, like promote it for you. And that's where like, it kind of comes in handy for consigners to learn that like, oh, they're going out of their way to promote my item versus if I just listed it on eBay and I had to hope somebody found it, like.
See, what I need Rare Candy to do is like auction, like playset full art Arvins, like that. Like playset full art rare candies, gold rare candies, ultra balls. I want those. I need those for my deck. Give them to me.
Hey, you never know what might be coming down the pipes, man. Like I don't know if you saw, but this next auction, we actually have like an actual trophy, not a trophy card, but we actually have a
physical trophy.
Yeah, like an internationals like 2023 third place trophy. I'm like, that's crazy to me. Like that we actually have a physical bronze trophy on hand now. And then I like without giving away too much stuff, we have some really interesting things in the works that like if they get secured for consignment, I don't think I've ever seen anything like this anywhere else. It's
nice.
Yeah, it's cool stuff. It's gonna be a banner auction. If we secure these things, it's going to be pretty crazy. Intent.
Maybe a more technical question now that we're talking a lot about the auctions. Like you obviously host auctions or live streams. How difficult is it to pay attention to like auction, like pricing, paying attention to the chat? Obviously, there is a live chat. And also just doing your job. Like you're just doing all of those things at the same time. Like how difficult is that? Like what's the experience like?
So for me personally, it's easier than it probably comes off sometimes, just because I come from the world of Twitch streaming where like one of the things I used to do on Twitch was speedrun the game Cuphead, which is an incredibly difficult precision based game.
Yeah, that is.
And I had, like I was one of the top 100 fastest Cuphead speedrunners on the planet for a while. And then the DLC came out, everybody got back into it. I got booted out of the top 100. That's kind of a bummer, but but in order to play that game super precise and stream it while also watching your chat, it required me to learn how to kind of separate my focus a little bit. And it's something that I was able to learn how to do. Probably the ADHD. I don't know. But I would sit there and play the game, and I would know at what points muscle memory could take over, and I could actually, like, while I'm still playing, turn and look at my chat and like on a different screen and watch it. And so that really helps, because like compared to doing that, talking about cards, seeing prices, and communicating with chat at the same time is a lot less stressful. Now I will say I also when I'm hosting the auctions, I actually run production on them as well. Like I'm the one that does, like we set up a stream deck so I could do all of the transitions and turning the mic on and turning the music down and all that. So like whenever I'm doing a stream, it's almost like a one-man show. I run the production for the premiere auctions as well, while Leonhardt's out there streaming it and actually being the face. But whenever I'm doing the weeklies, or if I'm doing a box break or something, I have somebody on a box break helping me like pack the cards up now. Used to I didn't. Used to I laid out every bag that I was going to package them in and went ahead and numbered them. So when I was done, I just laid the stack down on each bag and then went and bagged them all up after. That was a nightmare. However, now it's like, it's like I'll pass those off to somebody else to bag up, but I do paying attention to everything at once is a lot easier than I think it would be for some, just because I've had experience doing it in the past, and that helps a lot.
It's like when I was doing the box breaks for Rare Candy, some of those, you had like John in the background. He was connecting everything. So when you're actually at Rare Candy's facility, it's neat that you get to do it. You get to do all that stuff now. You got all the behind the scenes work.
I will say, I don't know a timeline yet, but we are working on ways to make it easier to go back to doing stuff like that as well.
Okay.
Like remote box breaks on the platform. So that way, if community members want to maybe host a thing or two, that's something that we are working on re-implementing in a much simpler, less, what's the word? Like, I guess it would be a less complicated manner, where you don't have to have somebody on the back end monitoring everything. Basically, one of us would just be there to make sure that somebody's not doing something they're not supposed to.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, like somebody who's like, I know Noah, obviously you do some Twitch streaming as well. With the TCG Live, by the way, fantastic stuff. I'll fully admit that, as much as I don't want to stroke.
Danke. I need to do more. I haven't been streaming for a while.
But like with seeing like your setup and how you have that done, with the way we're trying to make this work, that it would be a piece of cake for somebody with like your technical prowess to be able to do on their own without having to worry about having somebody on the back end controlling everything. So that would be another way to get the community more involved again, which would be really cool.
Yeah. Discord box breaks, they return? They're going to have them on the app, everything like that? Whoa, we don't know. What's going on? What's going on?
Like, that's just a little snippet of info.
Yeah. What's your favorite thing, though, that has actually been on the auctions? The best card, like you said, there's trophies, not anything like that. Poster, I don't know. What is the best thing, your favorite thing that you've seen?
So for me personally, and originally I probably would have never said this, but I think like post-auction it kind of became the thing, was the Tropical Mega Battle trophy cards. Like holding all three of those like in my hand to take pictures and stuff like that. At first it was kind of like, whatever. But then like the more I started digging into the history of the cards, how rare they actually are. It's crazy. And then of course, like obviously whenever you see what they go for and the value of them, it kind of like, but I you know what I will say though, if I do have a real one though, like now that I think about it, the Snap Starters, not just one of them. If I had to pick one, I'd say Bulbasaur, just because Bulbasaur is my guy.
Yep.
But being able to take those cards raw to Beckett, drop them off, go and then film content of picking them up. So by the way, if you haven't seen, we actually do have Beckett put out a video of me being able to pick up those cards and revealed the grades of them. That whole experience kind of made that really cool. Like being able to go to Beckett, pick up the card, or drop the cards off, then pick them up, film content with them, and then them share it. That was kind of a bit of an interesting kind of surreal moment, because it was like, oh, I'm like really in this space now that a grading company just put a video featuring me for this company out on their platform. And so yeah, I'd say the Snap Starters just for that reason, the experience alone.
Nice.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. They were cool cards too. I mean, super rare. I will say though, fun fact. I got misfed a small bit of information when I recorded a video for somebody else at Collecticon. Because whenever you have these super rare cards, there's actually like a difference in how many exist versus how many were officially awarded. And I asked somebody that is an expert how many of them exist, and he gave me that number. and I used that number instead of just kind of the public-facing awarded number, and we kind of got flamed because they're like, "Oh, who let this through? They don't know what they're talking about." And it's like, actually, we do. It's not to argue semantics, but there is a difference in how many exist and how many were officially awarded. You know, like that's like the 25th anniversary creature decks, right? Like we just did. We had Beta Chansey in the last auction. You know, we've probably seen the 25th anniversary creatures corporate history decks all over the place. There's still not like an official number of how many were ever actually made, but apparently it's more than we're awarded because Steve Aoki just got one like earlier this year. So it's like there's
really? Okay.
There's still some in existence that weren't officially awarded yet, and that kind of is where I tie that point back to. Is like there's a difference.
Yeah. And like, you know, when you think like, oh, if it's base set cards, 10,000 stuff like that, you're like, oh, it's no big deal, that extra copy. But it's like, yeah, this card has 5 copies, 10 copies, 20 copies. You're like, so another 2 or 3 even makes a difference, right? You know, it is. In whether or not that's price, just really more of a history and more of like everybody saying how many are actually out there. Like how many could we get? Some cards you'll never know, but
illustrators.
Yeah, exactly.
How many years ago?
PK Ono. How many of those is he pushing out? Because
think about that. Like in terms of the illustrator cards, what was it like? Maybe 10-ish years ago. I don't know the exact number. That card was like almost like a myth. Like it was like a legend. Like nobody knew that it was even actually real. Then all of a sudden, Logan Paul buys one for a ridiculous amount of money, and they're all getting graded and everything now. Now we have one coming up, and Tag Grading just revealed that they got one that was a 10, which I'm impressed with their grading system. That's a whole nother thing, but that was like a really cool banner moment for them, was that they got one and it came out of 10. It was like their 100,000th card graded kind of thing. And it's just like, but it's like, dang, where are they all coming from? Like jokes on us, it's the same one. They just keep breaking it and resubmitting it elsewhere.
Some of that is true though. Actually,
it happens.
Some of that with PSA, a lot of the 9s cracked. Like Logan's, I believe his was cracked several times, put back to PSA, and finally it was one of those. You know, it's between a 9 and it's a 10. It could be a 9, could be a 10. It's the 9.5 really, and eventually, it is a 10.
Yeah, I want to say, if I remember correctly, like Logan had one of the first edition base set Charizards in a 10 PSA, but then thought that he could get a BGS 10 or Black Label, so he cracked it and sent it, and
he got the gold, I think, on that one, right?
Oh, did he get?
Because there were only like 3 golds, and then he got it, and there's like a 4th. So
honestly, another hot take. As much as I don't really care for the guy, he did a lot for the Pokemon space in general in terms of popularity, just like bringing it back to the forefront. You know, like for better for worse, up for debate sometimes, but it's a huge thing now. And again, it was always been kind of big, but now it's like full blown mainstream once again.
Yeah.
Like that was definitely a point where Pokemon just blew up again with the pandemic. That combination was just out of this world. Who could have expected that?
Right. Yeah. Kind of like I say the same thing about the One Piece card game, is like there was like a perfect storm of how some of those manga rares just all of a sudden got, or the game itself got so popular, because it was like the game lined up putting OPO5 out at the same time that Gear 5 Luffy was kind of showing up in the anime for the first time.
Right on the anime.
And the live action show was starting at the same time. So it was just like this perfect storm of like, there was something One Piece in like every aspect of life all of a sudden, and it just created this perfect storm. Now One Piece is one of the hottest card games in the world.
I don't know if we want to get me started on One Piece. Huge fan. I'm reading the manga a second time right now, but yeah, as far as the card game goes, I read the manga once in 2 months basically, because I was just like obsessed. And then like I'm reading it again, but you're right. Right when the anime, when Gear 5 is pretty much coming out, right around that time we started having it in the TCG, and I've been in the One Piece TCG for a bit over a year. It was like April is when I got OPO2 the very first time, April 2023. So we started to see that card prices weren't just driven from people who were playing the game, even though a lot of that is the case. All of a sudden, because so many people wanted that manga rare Luffy, that it was just people just cracking packs, just ripping back just to try to get them, and so prices shot up because of that. And so that's what Pokemon has done in the past. Pokemon's not just, it is to a certain extent playability priced, but it's also like, oh, this new Charizard, it's gonna stunk, right? That's the thing. So let's get it. So that happened. That happened with Luffy.
Yeah, 100%. And it is. You see a lot where playability still does play a factor in early pricing of cards in the Pokemon TCG right now. But clearly your SIRs are going to be a lot higher than your full arts or your standard, format cards because there is a rarity to them on top of it. So it's kind of smart to make these different versions of rarity of the same card, because then it becomes a collector's item on top of playability. Like, I know people who play the Pokemon TCG that are still hunting the SIRs because that's what they want in their deck, because there's like a, it's like almost like a flex, right? Like, it's like a flex to have it. Like, I'll be honest, I've 100% never played the TCG ever. And maybe that's a content piece for us to collaborate on later, Noah. But
gotta play
right here in the Discord. You can teach me how to play.
Yeah.
You may have seen Leonhardt's learning how to play now. Like, people are actually wanting to learn how to play the game, which is pretty cool. And I mean, I want to learn it because it feels like something that I could sit and stare at and not lose focus on after 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's definitely we should look into, because I've been putting it off for way too long. I've been saying this for like 3 years now to Noah. Like, one day I'll learn how to actually play. Maybe
We're
we
gonna
should
have a
just
training
set it up.
session. Yeah.
I actually had it
Discord training session, next event. We're gonna teach how to play the TCG. We'll load up online.
Yeah, Pokemon TCG for dummies. Let's do it.
Seriously, dude, that actually might be a pretty solid idea to like just maybe put aside a day a week that you want to kind of goof around and maybe teach some people how to play and host that like right here on the stage. And just pay attention to the chat and just like host on the stage. Be like, anybody have any questions or stuff? And then of course, then you sign up, you make a masterclass account, and then you teach people how to play for money.
Then I'm like toured and I'm making 7K within one day, because he's got so many people learning Charizard decks. And yeah, after I win Indianapolis this weekend, we'll do that. Okay.
Yeah, report back. I want to hear how you do.
I'll let you know.
Yeah,
hopefully
I'll share it on socials, man. Be like, oh, Rare Candy Discord mod Noah out here winning. I don't know. I'll figure something out. But
placing 223rd place,
which is crazy.
That's not
there was
bad.
only 221 people in the tournament. I don't know. That's weird.
That's the last one I was at. There were 2,400 people.
Oh,
so
wow.
200 and some would be great, because you get top 256. You still get
that's
stuff,
a lot of people.
Yeah.
A ton.
On the topic of like hosting or doing events, like Rare Candy obviously started working with influencers like pretty early on after they just launched their brand. Like, who is still actively working with Rare Candy as an influencer?
So this is actually a really good question, because there have been some massive changes that kind of happened to our creator partner program that didn't like get announced out there. They're like, oh, hey, we're making these massive changes, right? So used to, what was happening was basically we'd have these creator partners. Every now and then we'd host an event with them, which was kind of a logistical nightmare with the setup that was in place before, with the live streaming aspect of it. But we did have a lot of really prominent creators in the Pokemon space that were part of our program. But what it ultimately ended up turning into before I even made it here was just kind of like, you agree to let us use your clips for social media posts. Like, it's kind of what it just like turned into. And, a lot of them wouldn't accept collaboration requests. So it just kind of looked like we were just sharing their content, which is kind of weird, even though we'd tag them. And so it kind of became like one-way transactional. It's like, okay, yeah, we were getting views because we were sharing their clips, but it was their clips. It wasn't like their clips from our platform. It was from their own stuff and redirecting people to them, which that's not really a creator partner program. That's just like basically an agreement to let us use your content, which not the way we really wanted to go about it after I took over the deal. So I actually we started working with influencers who wanted to be involved with Rare Candy. They may not be these like huge, massive influencers in the Pokemon space, but they're people who are passionate about Pokemon and do have some form of dedicated following, even if it's just a good handful of friends that just love coming by their streams or watching their videos or checking out their TikToks or whatever it is. So we do have we have the current iteration of the creator partner program, which is something more along the lines of that. Which it is more of a partnership. You can actually see it right there if you go to the creator partner section on the website. It's one of those where it's like, not only do you get kind of like the typical like almost affiliate type thing where you share, somebody uses your code, you get a little bit of a kickback on it, as well, as well as them getting a discount on it, which is like your typical affiliate stuff. But once you hit like a certain amount of redemptions, we'll send you a care package of like, a Rare Candy shirt and hat, or maybe some other swag we have. And we ran out of the bracelets, or I'd be sending those still. Those were a hit, and that was my idea. Thank you. No, we gave a lot of those away at conventions. People loved them, but yeah, we'll give them like a little care package of stuff like that, and then maybe like a little thing from the newest set. Right now, we had a couple that I sent out a Temporal Forces booster box and an ETB2 today. So it's like, that way it shows that it's more of a partnership, and we show you like, hey, we appreciate the fact that you're actually like out there like sharing Rare Candy with your community, and you trust us enough to do that. Because I mean, sure, there are going to be some kind of creators out there that are going to just throw links up on their platform and just hope that somebody maybe buys something from it or whatever. But we kind of like check out the content of how people typically, like how some of these applicants will work with different brands, for different things, to see if it's like, are they just promoting it for the sake of promoting it, or are they promoting it because they actually enjoy what they're doing? And those are the people we typically go for now, is like people who want to promote us because they trust us. And we actually, if you sign up for our creator partner program, we give you like a free $50 coupon to buy something from Rare Candy. Like, it's like one of those like $50 off of an order of $51 or more kind of thing. So you're still going to spend $1, but no, but it's like you can, but yeah, you get to do something like that. And that way you can actually try us out before you commit to sharing your code with people. Make sure like we're a good fit for you. We actually, that's the direction we took it. Now, we do still have close relationships with a lot of big creators, but in kind of today's explosive Pokemon climate, sometimes it's it's a little pricey to do deals with certain influencers and things like that, and that's okay. Obviously, it's literally a business, right? Like, even the content creators, it's a business for them. And so it's understandable if, it's something that we can't really work through because maybe they're partnered with another actual like shop. They can't be an affiliate with us because they're actually they own their own shop or something. But we still hold strong relationships with them because, we want to make sure that we're a part, again, of a community. And you can't really be a part of a community if you distance yourself from people just because you don't see eye to eye on a certain business strategy, right? Like, it's okay to have, competition in a space, but still be civil with each other and be friends. Like, in the end, we're all in it for for the love of the game, right?
Yeah, for sure. So, and I know in the beginning you had some like One Shot Girl. She was doing some like box breaks and stuff like that, I think, with Rare Candy. And like, I don't know if she's still involved, but anybody like that, do they then have any current roles, or is it mostly they're just stepping back? It's just more of keeping up that relationship with them. There's nothing planned necessarily. You might not be able to share, but
yeah, at the moment, that's kind of where it's at. As we continue to launch into kind of some deeper territories in certain other areas, like the aforementioned collector tools and stuff like that. That's something that obviously they would be, like bigger creators would love to be on the ground floor of like kind of announcing testing and stuff like that with in that regard. But in terms of like things like box breaks and shop and stuff like that, it's just it's not feasible at the moment with the current like rates to bring on partners like that to pay like one-off fees. And again, we don't really have a great logistical setup for remote streams right now, which but that's why we're working on that, is so that way we can have easier times doing stuff like that again.
Yeah, that's fair.
And how do you set up these partnerships? Is it just me signing up for the program and you just reviewing that and contacting me, or do you guys reach out to certain people that you perhaps want to get on board?
A little column A, little column B. If we see creators that like kind of cross our path quite a bit, then we'll reach out and see if it's of interest. But a lot of it is actually outreach to us through that creator partner program page, where then we will go and because like you're supposed to provide your social links and links to your content, so we can go and review it, which is another time consuming aspect of what I do. but yeah, it's pretty much mostly that one, doing more of the responding to people who are interested, checking out their content, and then getting them approved, getting them a coupon code, and going ahead and getting them their their first little $50 thing and their care package, etc. Whenever they get the ball rolling.
Is it mostly like very small creators then who sign up or try to sign up, or because if I think about it, like if I'm a very small creator, obviously you want to be connecting and partnering up with bigger brands. So I would try to sign up. Like, is it a lot of those like very small creators, or is that like not that big of an issue?
I mean, we do get quite a few small creators, but they are creators who are passionate about what they do in the being in the TCG space in general. And so, it at our current stage of it, the size of your audience doesn't matter. It's really like the quality of the content plus, obviously like making sure you're not kind of out there being, a troublemaker, if you will. But
sorry, Steven, you can't do it. Not you, Steven. You, Steven. Which one?
Hey, I don't get kickback, but I have a coupon code. Okay, no, but yeah,
I don't.
Hey, I'm just saying. Yeah, no, like we do accept creators of all sizes, and we have a lot of So there are several different tiers of like what influencer size is. There's I want to say it's like 8 different levels of creator in terms of following size, and it goes from what they call like a macro creator, somebody with like in the millions, versus a micro influencer who is somebody within maybe the hundreds, maybe the thousands. And we get some micro influencers, but a lot of them are kind of in that middle tier where they have like several thousand followers, but their content is very centric around Pokemon. Even if it's like spreading Pokemon deals, like we do have some affiliates whose literally all their content is sharing like the best deals in Pokemon they can find. And what I do is once a week I reach out and say, hey, here's some of the cool stuff we have coming up. As long as I know it ahead of time. Sometimes I don't, but but then it's like, if you'd like to share this with your audience when it goes live, feel free. Here's maybe the graphic we're going to share on social if you want to share it too, kind of thing. And then we also share events and stuff with them, like the auctions and any box breaks and giveaways and stuff like that as well.
Nice. So we mentioned earlier about the 3 snap cards, and you went to Beckett. You did that whole thing. I personally have not seen that because I stayed off of a lot of social media, I guess. But how did that come to life?
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, working with grading companies, I'll be the first one to say working with any grading company that's not PSA is actually incredibly easy. A lot of them are open to partnerships with things like that. And that's basically what it was. Like me and our director of auction success just kind of put our heads together and was like, you know what? First off, I live 2 miles from the Beckett office. So it's like, maybe this could be a cool promo opportunity. Like they have never graded a Snap Charmander before. We got the big 3, they'll probably look good in their slabs, all this stuff. And so it was like, we could create content on the spot. It's not, we don't have to fly out somewhere. It's like just down the road. And, and they were excited at the opportunity as well, because Beckett's been kind of like most grading companies in the space of sports cards for so long, but they're trying to get it on the popularity of TCGs. And so it was exciting for them to be a part of something kind of historic. Because I don't know that I don't know if a Charmander ever went up for sale before, but I know that our Charmander was a record breaker. It was like the highest public sale of a Snap Charmander, so that's pretty cool. And that's kind of what it was. He just like reached out via email. It was like, hey, how do we make this work? And they're like, all right, let's just schedule a time and let's make it happen. And it was like a pretty casual thing. And then I showed up at the office and like right there in their lobby, we filmed the unveiling and everything. And it was pretty cool. It was kind of weird because like they wanted to ask me a bunch of questions about my collecting journey. And I was like, pretty short story, buddy. I don't have a long collecting journey. I was like, unless you want to talk about art toys like this Call of Cthulhu statue, then I don't have a lot to talk about in terms of collecting yet. But we made it work. It was cool. Like I said, I mean, it's on ours and their Instagram because it was a collaborative post. And I'll pop it in the Discord after this just to be like,
hey, for sure,
check it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's working with grading companies in general. Like I said, outside of PSA is pretty cool. Like we've done a lot of collaborative content with CGC. We've had really good, solid CGC cards in some of our auctions, and we'll do collaborative emails with them. Like they'll actually send a blast about our auctions out to their entire subscriber list as long as it's features just CGC cards. But one of the more exciting ones, in my personal opinion, recently was, the kind of partnership with Tag, which, I'm not like the biggest fan of the idea of like machine learning and AI, but in terms of like grading cards for that level of accuracy and transparency, I want to know that like the grade I'm getting is actually the grade it should be. And so like seeing kind of how in depth they were, it was like, okay, cool. Like, yeah, this is sick. Let's do something with this. And so we had that like all Tag auction, and you were able to go and look at these reports and like turn this transparency slider down where you could like visibly see defects on the card surfaces from scanning and stuff like that. I don't know. It was really cool, and they were really fun to work with because, first off, they have like content around all of the cards anyways, because instead of just scans, they actually do take photos of the cards on slab stands. So it's like, oh, I can just like, I can kind of pull those aside and use them.
Take those over here.
Yeah. But yeah, it's really cool, seeing these companies still still working to try to make, an effort to break through into this space, like just like we are still, like we're doing a pretty solid job so far, but there's still a lot of room to be, a lot of room to make up. I mean, we have a lot of people who still don't even know that rare candy's a thing. Like I'll get on I'll get on TikTok and go around live streams just interacting with people, and like they may be like, wait, rare candy, wait, is that Leonhardt's thing? And like kind of like have maybe an idea, and
yeah,
I'll usually respond like, oh, he's a co-founder, but this is the chunky bearded dude that runs the socials. Like so it's like, yeah, it's cool to see companies like Tag coming up trying to use like transparency and consistency to make their stake their claim rather in the space. But this is going to be my hot take on grading. I do feel like machine learning grading has a hard time because there are a lot of big investor collectors that rely on human error sometimes to give a card a better grade than what it actually deserves. But I think collectors are also starting to wisen up to that, and that's why like you'll actually see some first edition Charizards go for way less than others, even though they're both PSA 10, because it's like, oh, that's not like they'll actually,
it's not a strong 10. Yeah,
exactly, it's not a strong 10 or it's a weak 10. Like so I think it's a cool thing to see. Still trying to make it happen in this space. Hard to do.
Yeah, always changing it up, always improving. Now, what has been the highlight for you personally at Rare Candy since you started working there?
The highlight for me, as I would say, I've mulled this question over quite a bit over the last week, and I boiled it down to two. And I'd probably lean towards the one being the kind of big one was we put on a kind of a mixer event at CollectCon Dallas, and it was supposed to just be like, we invited a couple of people in and just kind of networked a little and talked to people in the space and whatnot. And it was supposed to be, I think, like a max of like 20 to 30 people. And it kind of went house party situation. We ended up having like 150 people there.
Oh, wow.
And they were all like high-end collectors and content creators in the space, and everybody was. But the reason it was the highlight for me was I went up to the bar to get me a drink, and when I turned around, I just saw everybody chatting, hanging out, having a good time. Some people who are in the space that have never met, like different collectors. Some collectors talking to certain creators that they were meeting for the first time, and vice versa. And it was something about that moment really stood out to me. It was really cool to see that, like as Rare Candy, we were able to host this little event. We called it the Day Zero event, and it was kind of something that I was pushing for, because when I was Twitch streaming at TwitchCon, Discord always actually put on a really solid Day Zero event. It was like they had it the night before the event actually began. So like CollectCon was technically only Saturday and Sunday, I think, and this was on Friday night. And,
nice. Yep.
And just to see all these people who were already in town anyways, because nobody's going to get there on the day of, looking for something to do, and we provided that space for them, and everybody was just having a good time. My second one, it's a little less, but it was still kind of cool, was getting to host my first premiere auction, because there was one premiere auction where Leonhardt had, he had a little bit of conflict to schedule. He wasn't able to host it, and then I got to step in and host it, and that was really cool. I was actually I was nervous. Like, I had hosted a bunch of weeklies and stuff like that, but for some reason the premiere, maybe I was nervous. But
Yeah.
that was
Different set of eyes on you.
Oh yeah, a whole different ball game with some of those cards. You
Yeah.
know, like some of those big dogs.
Mhm.
And so those would be my big two. But I would say probably for me, just because of the kind of community aspect of it, would be that little like day zero mixer. It was cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, that just sounds like something that I would love. Like, stuff like that is why I love being around the community. I love interacting. I love talking to people,
Yeah, and
joking around, posting gifts.
yeah, yeah, and there is, you know, like, undoubtedly there is a whole different layer of it whenever it's not in the online space. You're able to do that in person. There's just like there's something else to it. Like, obviously online, you know, is great being able to have these conversations with people, but it's kind of, I guess, part of the human experience to like kind of crave that in-person interaction and stuff like that, and it just kind of adds a little more to it, I guess. Awesome.
Yeah, I love Pokemon. I love the space and the scene, but the thing that I thrive on is really that aspect of it. Like, having a night with like just like-minded people, and it doesn't even have to be about Pokemon. Maybe you're talking about your kids or your family or your job, whatever it may be. Like, those are the things that I just enjoy the most. Like, that is just right up my alley. So I hate that you didn't invite me today.
So the thing is, I invited everybody from the Discord. It was just who could make it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's 100% agree with that, man. Like, it's really cool. It's kind of almost like an icebreaker, right? Like, you already have something in common with the Pokemon space, so it's like an icebreaker, but it's not what like everybody obsesses over. So it's like, okay, well, this is like a starting point. You expand upon that. You find out, oh, we have this in common. We have this in common. That's like, I was talking to Leonhardt's his videographer yesterday when we were doing that setup, the thing I was telling y'all before this started. Wait, I could say it. It's live. The museum. It's open right now. But I was talking to the videographer, and I just made like a wrestling reference. Like, I'm a pro wrestling fan. I made a wrestling reference, and after that, it was like 10 minutes of just talking about wrestling, you know, and
Yeah.
it was like, it's really cool to see that kind of camaraderie build out of just like a small little, like, again, an icebreaker, you know, like,
Yeah.
Mhm. So you mentioned you were at Collecticon. How did that go after day zero?
oh, Collecticon. So Collecticon was actually pretty great. I was exhausted the whole time because I found out that I'm kind of getting old. I don't bounce back the way I used to, and we had like we did a lot of bowling. Like, the team got together when a bunch of them were here in town, and we went bowling. And they will be the first to tell you I'm like a scary bowler because I windmill when I throw. Like, I literally overhand windmill the ball because my goal.
boy.
Oh no.
My goal is to
Okay.
throw the ball as fast as I possibly can.
Yeah.
And here's my philosophy though: is like, the less time it takes for it to get from my hand to the pins, the less time it has to go one way or the other to the gutters. And listen, I won one of the games, so I'm going to stand by my philosophy. But
There you go.
So I was sore all weekend, but then
Yeah.
but then we went and got like Korean barbecue with like some other collectors and stuff. So I was like full too. Like, dude, I was miserable. But the convention itself was fun. Like, I was like sore with the meat sweats
Physically
all weekend.
Done.
Yeah, I won a free shaker cup at the Gamer Subs booth, so there was that. Like, that was cool. But aside from that, it was a really good convention though. We got a lot of that was where I told you we were beta testing a lot of the new collector tool features and seeing kind of how that performed out in the wild with people. You know, obviously being in beta, there's going to be some new stuff that needs to be figured out and everything, but like the overall like first impression of it was like really strong. And even as somebody who's not on the engineering team as part of the Rare Candy team, that was really awesome to see. And it made me incredibly jealous that they don't have an Android app.
I'm right there with you, okay? I'm not using an iPhone, I'm using Android still, so.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Android till I die, man. The phone is just too big and too Oh, I thought I had a meeting. It scared me for a second. I was like, what? But yeah, no, it's yeah, overall it was really cool. CollectCon is kind of its own thing, like atmosphere, because they have like several of them a year, but in different cities, and it's kind of got a similar vibe no matter where you go. You know, you have people doing musical performances, voice actors doing Q&A. You will inevitably hear Jason Page sing the Pokemon theme song on stage live. It happens. I've been to several CollectCons already, and I have not heard Jason perform that yet.
Yeah.
So, but it's kind of goes back to that like camaraderie aspect, though. You know, like you get to talking to people and you get to hearing their stories, and maybe there's something that reminds you of like your story, and you listen to it. You see the families, because CollectCon, especially Dallas, was very family oriented. There was a lot of parents with their kids sharing the love for the same thing, because it's, you know, obviously it spans generations. What, the first game came out in '96 in Japan, you know, and so it's like that's a long time, man. We're almost to 30 years, so it's a generational phenomenon, and you're seeing families enjoy it together, and there's just something special about it, and that's why I really enjoyed CollectCon, despite being sore and having the meat sweats from so much barbecue.
Any future events you guys are lining up?
We are definitely going to be at CollectCon Fort Worth, because I mean we're based out of DFW, so it's really easy for us to have presences there. And to a lesser extent, you know, maybe not like having a full booth, but there will be a presence of Rare Candy of some kind, whether it's like me or, you know, Lee goes to like all the conventions he can, so you definitely talk to him about Rare Candy if you see him out in the wild. But I don't want to confirm this, but there's a potential that we will have some kind of presence at Card Party again this year, in Orlando, which would be cool. Trying to have a lot of cool stuff ready by then to show off. But
Gen
yeah.
Con? Question? Gen Con?
I think we have some people going to Gen Con, but I don't think we're gonna have a booth like we did last year. Just because Gen Con booths are incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
However,
especially when they only give you half the size of the booth that you bought. So
yeah, that was a tiny booth. However, like I said, you know, like we'll probably have like a presence to some degree. I would like to go back and actually like just enjoy the convention, you know, like not necessarily like a work thing for Rare Candy, but just go enjoy Gen Con. Maybe go get ice cream again. But I don't know. Yeah, I think we'll have some presence at Gen Con.
Nice. Sweet. And last but not least, but what is your favorite update that has happened to the app, website, everything like that? What's your favorite?
So, as somebody who likes to watch the auctions from desktop, the new auction format is incredible on desktop. There's still a few things that need to be worked out on mobile, that we've already, you know, helped spot and work on it. You know, they're already getting to work on improving that. But seeing kind of the updated layout of Auction V2 on the website, like desktop, has been really cool, because it's like you have everything up there without it getting in each other's way. You have the stream in the middle, the current item on the left, chat on the right. It's a really nice layout. So I'm going to have to say, actually, that ask me again in like 6 months, and it'll probably be collector tools.
Yeah.
It's always changing, like when new stuff drops.
Yeah, and
old stuff fades away.
Hey, as long as we have the new stuff to enjoy and talk about, that's where got to stay strong. It's like we got to keep always improving and launching these new. You've always got to be launching new features, but you got to make sure that they're relevant, right? Like you got to make sure you're not just launching stuff for the sake of launching it, but launching stuff that's relevant to the user base that they're going to enjoy. And so as long as we keep doing that, all up.
That was all we had for you today, Stephen. I want to thank you so much for coming on, talking for like a good amount of time. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much.
For real, like, really enjoyed it. Gave us some more insight again behind the scenes. Like, last time we got a lot of, like, technical stuff, like, building stuff, like, how things operate, how things work. Like, we got a very different perspective here today, so thank you so much, dude, for giving us that insight.
Round of applause to Stephen. Round of applause to
Good
bad
job,
Stephen,
good job,
who's
Stephen.
becoming good. You
I'm working my way to chaotic neutral, Stephen. Is what?
okay?
Yeah,
I like
it's,
that.
That's
Chaotic
where my
neutral,
alignment's
Stephen.
gonna be. It's gonna stay chaotic though. It's got to. It's always changing.
Well, shout out again if you're at the end of the video on YouTube and you're like, "What's this Discord?" Go join. Link's probably down below, right? Is that a thing? Who knows?
It'll be
Ask
that,
me below.
Yeah,
yeah,
you're gonna
it'll-
do it. You're the one who puts it up.
Yeah, there's gonna be links to everything down there. There's gonna be links to the Discord, to the socials.
Follow everything, like everything, subscribe everywhere.
You best.
Let's do it.
Well,
And if you do join the Discord, go tag us. Just tag us. Just say hi.
Just
We're
do it.
down.
Say hi.
Down for
We're
a
here.
talk.
Yeah, just say hi. Like, God.
yeah.
And we
Do
will
it.
continue the conversation over there. Thanks for watching and listening. Bye-bye.
Bye.